Welcome to the Meditation Podcast. You can find all our episodes at meditation.Podcast.org. My guest today, with a wealth of experience as a self-employed businesswoman and consultant, she's deeply committed to guiding individuals on their journey of personal transformation. She focuses on helping people cultivate thriving health, happiness, and purpose through powerful tools of energy medicine, spiritual embodiment, and meditation. From Colorado in the USA, please welcome Dr. Mary Sanders.
Thank you, Roy. I really appreciate that introduction. I'm really looking forward to connecting with you and the listeners and just overall having a nice, beautiful, heartfelt, and juicy conversation.
And for those that are actually watching on Spotify or BitChute, YouTube, and Rumble, you've got a beautiful background. I mentioned it prior to recording, but I think it's nice to have a kind of, I don't know, let's call it a sacred space or some place that just gives you energy. So you might just talk on that and kind of why it's good for you and what you've created, because it is beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, behind me, those that have a video, essentially is my logo, and it's superimposed on various different colors that I resonate and that are part of my life force energy. And then I also have a picture of Phật, who is the Vietnamese Buddha. And I picked him up when I was living in Ho Chi Minh City. And then I have a die-cut wooden wall piece. I was about ready to call it a sculpture, but essentially it is the Hindu depictions of the individual images, the sacred geometry for chakras. And you probably can't see, but in between the individual images are symbols, are crystals that resonate with those frequencies as well. So yes, a lot of thought, Roy, went into my background. I wanted to be supportive. I have a small boutique office, and what you see behind me is kind of emulated throughout the rest of the office. So a lot of thought, energy, and intention went into the Bagua design of this space as well.
Yeah, excellent. So I suppose, obviously you've got a lot of qualifications, and I was looking at all the certifications and everything. But I'd like to kind of go back a bit and kind of know your own journey and then what made you kind of get into this.
Sure, Roy, I will break it up in sequences so that you can kind of ask questions as we go along. But let's see. My path is anything but linear. We all like to think that we're in control of our journey, but in all honesty, my journey has been circular and has been completely out of my hands. So, at a young age, at 25, I graduated from chiropractic school. And just like most people that are in the healing arts and are within medical practices, you get a wonderful training in your trade. However, you do not get the business training, if you will. And so I went through business with the School of Hard Knocks. And I made a lot of mistakes and I had a few successes. But over the years, I built a business that became larger than what I could really manage. I had multiple offices, multiple doctors, big staff. And to make a long story, Roy, it looked beautiful from the outside, but inside I was really struggling. I was struggling, I was depressed, I was overwhelmed, I was overworked, and I didn't really have the tools nor the resources to really ground myself into present time. So I went through a pretty big burnout, and it physically, what do I want to say? Physically, I went through an adrenal exhaustion. I could no longer exercise. I could barely function. I was doing intravenous injection to get the nutrients that I needed. Emotionally, I was incredibly drained. I was not present for my relationships in any way, shape, or form. So my husband, he talked me into letting the business go. I knew internally that it was the right thing to do because I could no longer manage it. And although I was very thankful for the opportunity and the journey, but it was time to go our separate ways. So we sold everything, including our house and our worldly possessions, and we moved to Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam. And when I woke up on the other side of the world, I literally felt like I was upside down. And it took me a while to find my footing and my grounding. So I was uncomfortable. I was very uncomfortable because I didn't know who I was in the identity outside of a brick and mortar physical space that I called my offices. I didn't know who I was if I was not recognized as Dr. Mary. And so, to make a long story short, I ran away from Ho Chi Minh City and I went down to Bali, Indonesia to wrap up my YTT, my yoga teacher's training certification. And I have been practicing yoga since, let's see, I was in undergraduate school. So since the age of 21, it was very, very much part of my life. And I wanted to better understand the history of yoga and to better understand the asana and the various different limbs of yoga. And so I went down to Bali, Indonesia, had a fabulous experience, came back to Ho Chi Minh City, and I fell in love with meditation. And so, Roy, for the first time in my life, I had time. I had time on my hands in which I could dedicate to my own personal practice. And I witnessed some really miraculous things. I finally realized that I knew the human body exceptionally well from the neck on down from my chiropractic training. I knew the central nervous system. I knew that the autonomic nervous system, the sympathetic, parasympathetic, bones, joints, nerves, ligaments, tendons. I knew all of that, but I knew very little as to what happened in the space between the ears. And so that's what led me to go study under Dr. Tal Ben Shahar in upstate New York and Lennox, or at the Wholebeing Institute. At that time, he was known as the guy for happiness, and he spent quite a bit of time talking about the neuroscience behind meditation. So I was tapping into the realization that our brain is plastic, and through the power of neuroplasticity, we really can rewire our physical brain. And so that was pretty miraculous to me. I just had to complete the full cycle of intellectually understanding as to what was happening with meditation with my own personal experience. So that in a nutshell was how I began my meditation journey. And that was probably over 15 years now, Roy. It's been part of my daily practice. My day does not feel complete unless I've had the opportunity to meditate. Since I've gone through my training with the Academy of Intuition Medicine, it has become a lot more expansive and part of my work. So I'm sure you must have a few questions. So I'll just pause there.
No, fascinating. And I suppose, like, one of the things, I mean, I had a lot of people working for me, and what I found is it does suck the energy out of you because you become like in agony and trying to work with all the people, and loads of people aspire to have a big, huge team around them. But when they get it, like most people I know, they actually hate it. And when they get away from it, they never want to build up a team again. And I think you have to experience that to realize it's not what you want. So, as hard as it is, I'm kind of glad that I did that journey early on rather than later in life. Because sometimes people, they kind of become entrepreneurial, when they're 40 or 50, and then they do that. And then they kind of, sometimes they actually lose everything because of, just being positive and thinking, looking on the sunny side of life, thinking, oh, this is going to work, when it doesn't. So just with the meditation then, what is the practice that you're currently doing, or do you vary it?
It varies. In the morning, because I am committed to my energetic hygiene, obviously as a medical intuitive, I want my energy to be as clean and pure as I possibly can be. So to make a long story short, my meditation practice at this moment, I soften away from my analytical and I strive to connect into the part of the brain that I call my sanctuary. And essentially, it's located a little bit further back in midline in the center of the cranium, and it's in the area of the hypothalamus and the pineal gland. And energetically, I know that the pineal gland taps me into my sixth chakra. I know that my sacred space taps me into my seventh chakra, which opens up the connections and the portals, if you will, to the domains that exist, the spiritual domain that connects us all. And so I tap into that awareness. I do some grounding practices with visualization. I also clear my energy field of other people's energy. I tap in to see what's happening within the Sushumna line, the vertical power current. And then I also look into what's happening within my chakra system. Once I scan all of that, then my intention, Roy, is to allow more of my original essence to radiate from within out and to allow more information from above down. And so it's just a glorious practice for myself. And it's cyclical, not cyclical like it is a daily practice, but as I find here in Boulder, Colorado, as we're transitioning through into the fall weather and the winter months, I find that the darker it is outside, the more I go inward with introspection. And so my meditations are getting longer and longer again. So when it gets brighter out, they get a little bit shorter, and then when it gets darker, they get a little bit longer.
The pineal gland, and I've heard like the fluoride is supposed to calcify that, and everything that they're doing is kind of stopping us from kind of being within. Is there ways of clearing that? Because that I think that's been scientifically proven that the fluoride is very bad, and I know it's in the water in Ireland and parts of the UK, and I think parts of the US as well. Is there ways of actually that we can use ourselves? Do we just tap into ourselves to clear it, or is there actually things that we can take that can clear it?
As far as fluoride is concerned, the main challenge that I would say is that it compromises the pineal. And the pineal gland, if you look at it anatomically, it's no bigger than the pinky nail. It's a very small gland, and it looks like a pine cone. So we have branches upon branches upon branches. And so there's a lot of surface area within that small little pine cone called the pineal gland. The fluoride that you're referring to causes calcifications or hardening, if you will, of that gland. And so that gland, I believe, is the gland responsible associated with connecting us into higher realms of consciousness. Now, I do believe in the power of intention. So if my intention says I want to clear, the fluoride or the calcifications or the deposits, then I can set that intention. The mind doesn't know what's real versus what is perceived. And so energy follows thoughts. If my thoughts are focused on clearing any disruption of the pineal gland, that's where my energy will go. So, it's hard. Our environmental influences surround us. We can't really, we try to separate ourselves from those, but, in all reality, shoot, you can get fluoride from your tea bags. Those that, have the heavy European, UK-based tradition of drinking lots of tea, it's hard to get away from the fluoride. It's found within the bags and within themselves. So, my practice is primarily I do a yearly detoxification, hoping to get the fluoride out, but I also I set my intention for clearing as well.
Very good. And with the chakras, then, like when you kind of go through your whole body, can you feel when you're out of whack? I kind of know just from walking. I feel there's something off, and I kind of get myself back together again. But can you when you're actually say let's meditate and then going through your whole body, are you able to know there's something out, and then you can align it to get back in flow?
Yes, absolutely. When I first started, obviously, this is a skill that takes time. Everybody listening, those of you that are listening, maybe, thinking that this is an exceptional gift. It's really not. We all have access and the ability to do this, just whether or not we have the desire and the intention. But because of my knowledge with the chakra system, I often see themes in my lives and other people that I hold space for that affect the individual chakras. So I have a fond appreciation as to what's happening from an emotional standpoint, what's happening within a chemical standpoint, and an endocrine standpoint within each of the chakras. I also know my system well enough to where I know where I have predisposed weaknesses and big life things that help to create deficiencies or excess in any of those areas. So I'm very mindful about spending a little bit more time in those areas to make sure that I'm in balance. But as far as clairsentiently being able to perceive if my chakra is distorted or tilted down or underactive or overactive, I can feel that. I can feel that within my own body. And when I'm in an expanded state and holding space for somebody else, that's how I do my readings, meaning that I am clairsentient and I can feel what's happening within another person's physical body and energetic body.
And with crystals then, because I believe like crystals are kind of connected with the different chakras as well, and the energy source, is that something that you use, like to have certain crystals around you?
Yeah, I do. I'm sitting here right here at my desk and I can see a blue topaz, purple amethyst, green, fluoride. I also have some calcite, rose crystals. I have a variety of different stones that surround me. I do it based upon what supports the energetic centers, what supports the area within the space. I believe that there's a lot of crystalline formation within our physical body. I believe that when we align ourselves with crystals and we're aligning ourselves with the earth, and so that our body, the DNA, the helix, the double helix formation is crystalline. Our teeth are crystalline, our bones are crystalline. So my intention is not to use quote unquote crystals for support, but to align with them because we are crystal. And so consequently, it's a resource that I want to align with, just like I align with the earth.
And do you do grounding? Yeah, I mean, that's something
Yeah,
I think is very beneficial.
I do too. And Roy, it's like a thirst. If I haven't had the opportunity to physically lay on the earth, I get thirsty for it. So, thankfully, I live in a beautiful part of the world, and Boulder is surrounded by beautiful outdoor trails and wonderful, the environment is so gorgeous. So I can get outside, I can do what I need to do. I can typically find a patch of grass or a shady bank, and I can just lay physically on the earth. Now, it doesn't, that my intention to ground every day, I do believe that I set the intention in my meditation, but it sure can't replace having my physical body on there.
And with the breath work thing, because breathing for relaxation, 7 steps. I think you had a blog on that. So yeah, I mean, I talk a lot about breath work. There's different types of breath work, but I think even proper breathing as well. But if you can recollect the 7 steps that you were writing about on breathing.
I can't, to be honest with you. I can't recall the individual 7 steps, but I can talk about the overarching themes because it is part of my practice. And as a yogi practitioner, I use pranayama. One of my big philosophies, Roy, is that the greatest healing, energetically and spiritually, happens when you're fully embodied within your human home. And so that happens when there is a safe environment and within the body for the spirit to inhabit. Safety comes when we are in a parasympathetic drive, meaning that we're in a rest and digest and a heal type mode. When we're rushing around, when we're sympathetic driven, when we're on the go, 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 fight or flight, that's not necessarily a safe space for the spirit to be. And so one of the things that I know with the trillions of my cells is that we can control our central nervous system through the breath. And so I know that if we just are watching, we can do box breathing, where there's, the same amount of inhalation, hold, exhalation, hold, inhalation, hold. That's box breathing. Or we can set the intention to purely experience the space of emptiness at the top of the inhalation and then lengthen through the exhalation and then experience the spaciousness at the bottom of the breath. And anytime that we are lengthening through the inhalation, neurologically, we are tripping our central nervous system, our autonomic nervous system specifically, into more rest, digest, and heal. So breath work, pranayama, is what guides my yoga practice today. It used to be the asana practice, to see what kind of bendy, twisty posture I could get my physical body into. But now, with 30 years underneath my belt, I've matured a little bit, and now it's my breath that guides my asana practice.
You've got a podcast as well. I have it written down here, but energy medicine, I believe it's called.
Yes, Roy, I appreciate you bringing that up. That is one of the greatest loves of my life. I now have about 100 episodes, and I've had the pleasure of connecting with practitioners all over the world that specialize in energy medicine. So, from a selfish perspective, I love connecting with like minded people such as yourself that understand the essence of what it is that we're wanting to achieve this lifetime around. And so we talk about all things that align the mind, body, and spirit. And I'm leaning into Roy, I'm leaning into more solo cast so that I can educate, pick a topic and educate about the tools of energy medicine so that people can be more empowered to do it on their own. It's a weekly episode. You can find it on any of the learning or listening platforms. And it's energy medicine with Dr. Mary, and it's all topics that align the mind, body, and spirit.
Mhm. Excellent. So you've a master's in intuition medicine. So you might kind of delve a bit deeper on that. What exactly? I mean, we've all heard of intuition, but is it the
Yeah.
intuition that we kind of, that feeling thing? Does it delve into that? And is there ways of
Oh,
actually?
very much so. Yeah,
So there
very
is
much
ways.
so.
There's a lot of ways of actually improving that and how you can. Yeah, I really want to delve into that. That's fascinating.
Yeah, I'm happy to. And this was part of my circular life experience, things that I didn't have control over. And that is, I was born into this world being hearing impaired. And so my hearing capacity is half of what the normal hearing is. And so for the sake of survival, because I had a deficiency in one of the traditional five senses, my hearing, then I developed extrasensory perceptions in order to deal with today's world. And so I didn't know that that was what was happening when I was a young girl because I went undiagnosed until the age of 3. And so I like to tell people that my first 3 years of life, I was just very, very connected into the spiritual realm because obviously I couldn't hear what was happening within my environment. And then a second thing happened in my home, in my environment. My father was an alcoholic, and I needed to expand my awareness to know when he entered into the house. I could sense it within my mother's change in her energy field and the change within my sister's energy field. So I learned to pick up information clairsentiently. So as I mentioned, that's just simply the ability to feel or to perceive what's happening for another person, place, or thing. It's like the way I would describe it is if you went into a party and you walked in and you just immediately sense the environment, you may be like, yeah, the energy feels good here. I like the people here. Or you may be like, there's something going on here that I don't want to be part of. So that instinctual knowing is an intuitive hit that will guide your life decision. And so what I learned is that I desensitized as a young girl. I desensitized my knowing because it just didn't fit within the paradigm of my family structure. My family was pretty heavy into Catholicism and, mysticism and energy and perception. Those were not things that we talked about. So, when I went to chiropractic school is when I allowed that information to start flowing, and I ran a high level of intuition and energy when I was in my chiropractic practices. That's what contributed a lot, in my opinion, to the success of my practices, and that was I intuitively read a person's energy, and I modulated my energy to be just a notch higher so that there was still a congruence, but there was a healing environment that that the patient walked into. And then through the power of my psychometry, then I was able to immediately kind of put my hands on the area where the patient was experiencing pain. And so, Roy, the comment that I always got was, how did you know? How did you know that that's where I hurt? I just knew. And so those were ways of receiving information via intuition. I always felt like I had the gift. But after I completed my chiropractic and then completed my journey in positive psychology, I realized that I wanted to study energy. And even though I felt like I was raised in an environment in which my parents were both educators. So there was a tremendous amount of emphasis on getting a degree. So it wasn't life experiences. You needed to attend a school in order to learn something. So I felt like I had the life experiences, but I needed that external validation from an institution. And so through the Academy of Intuition Medicine, I learned how to heighten my intuition. So my ability for direct knowing, my clairvoyance, my clairsentience, my psychometry, my telepathic centers, all of those are very much online. And those are the skills that I use to hold space and to read another person when I'm holding the space as a medical intuitive.
Mm, very good. And I mean, if I look back on a lot of the things, it's like, for example, before the crash, the property crash, I just had this instinct, sell everything. And I didn't. And I lost everything because of that. Recently, I was in Spain with my son. And I've never said something like this. I said, I think I'll leave the car in the hotel and we'll go, because it was like we were checking out of that hotel. I think I'll leave the car here. I think it'd be safer here. And then we'd get a taxi. And my son, he's only 10, my youngest child, and he done a search. He says, no, Valencia is the best place ever. And I've never had that feeling of leaving my car there. Never in my life. And the car was broken into and everything was robbed. Like passports, laptop, the whole lot. But it's like I kind of had that feeling, which is strange. And there's a lot of times even getting into business with people and everything. And I haven't listed. My mom is brilliant at that. She kind of picks up on it, but I'm paying attention to it more and more. So I think it's just a case of kind of listening is one of the main things. Yeah.
Yeah, I would go one step further and I would say it's trusting. Because we always are getting bombarded with information. It's just whether or not A, you listen, and then B, you trust, and then last but not least, you have to act on it.
Mm. So you do functional nutrition and positive psychology. So, I mean, like if we look at a lot of the things going on in the world, just, like there's so much pain in the world. There's so many things that are going on. Nutrition, obviously, but there's also a lot of institutions, organizations, psychologists that are pushing something, and it's kind of known that a lot of the big pharma stuff that they're pushing as well, they know it doesn't work, but they're pushing it. They're making people a lot worse, and then kind of people then are having pain within, thinking there's something wrong with them. But the problem is the whole institution is corrupt, unfortunately, due to power and money. And like obviously with what you're studying, you can see now you're helping people through the nutrition and psychology. So you might just touch on them, because I think they're kind of combined.
Yeah, I look at it kind of like a Venn diagram, right? So I see these like hence is the reason that my logo is designed the way that it is. I see intersections, areas in which there's a crossover or a blend of various different trainings and modalities and treatment. So obviously I really wanted to have a good understanding as to what was happening within the mind, and I have a good understanding of what's happening within the body, and I have a good understanding as to what's happening within the spirit. And then when you start to look at the crossover points and you find that sweet spot in the middle, Roy, is a place in which you can hold space for another person that combines all three of those components and to be aware of all three of them simultaneously. I've mentioned it, or perhaps I have mentioned it in this podcast, is that my appreciation for the human body and the human psyche to heal itself is really profound. It's really deep. That belief and that conviction literally resonates within the trillions of my cells. So in today's world, I think it is imperative that we have practitioners that can hold that space for others, because we can say somebody is in functional medicine or integrative medicine. The intention is to hold space for all three, but very few practitioners take the time to really understand holistically what's happening within the integrative spirit that sits before them.
And it's a shame because I mean, even like I know a lot of doctors, and they're not trained in anything else. And I think it's Albania is like 6 months that they do alternatives, but the rest it could be a few hours. And I think a lot of it is actually, we're talking about kind of the intuition in yourself, but a lot of it is actually putting trust in yourself. Because even with me, if there was different things happen with me, I found that, first of all, kind of you go to a doctor, when I was younger, and then eventually you kind of, when things aren't getting resolved, you try alternatives. But at the end, it's usually yourself that you kind of start doing the research yourself or touching within. And I think people have to kind of have trust in themselves as well and start paying attention, because a lot of the time they're giving their power to the person in the white coat. And yet, if there's an accident or whatever, we do need it. We, like, without a doubt, it's not that I'm knocking it that we don't need it, but we actually have to pay attention ourselves and don't just take the magic pill. Start researching what you're getting and see the knock-on effects and see what alternatives there is. But most people don't. I mean, I check everything. I look at all the different things that's available for that. And by doing that, you find that, I mean, I don't take any pills. But yet I go to some people and they open the drawer and you're just going, is this a pharmacy that I'm at? And that seems to be the norm in a lot of houses.
Yeah, you know what you said, the one thing that I really hope the listeners they absorb. That is, I think long gone are the days, Roy, in which an individual goes into a physician's office and says, fix me or heal me. That was the mode or the model of healthcare maybe 20 years ago. But things are changing, meaning that the access of the internet and being able to do your own research is empowering for individuals. And so I do think that it's necessary, just like you're talking about, you get the information, you get the suggestion. You don't have to follow every practitioner's suggestions. What you get to do is to lean into internally and intuitively what feels right for you. And that, my friend, is empowering.
Absolutely. Finally, the company, Avivia, is it? How do you pronounce it?
Aviva.
Aviva. So you might tell the listeners exactly what you're doing. And is everything that they have to be in person, or can you do it, work with people online as well? Because obviously there's an international audience.
Yeah, that's a great question. And Aviva essentially is just life. And so I wanted to, and that's the business, Aviva Integrative Health. And my intention is to hold space for individuals who are looking for transformation, whether it be physical, emotional, or energetic transformation. And the way that I hold space can be in person, and my strength actually lies in remote support. And so many of the listeners, rightfully so, Roy, many of the listeners are like, wow, okay, I have asthma. I wonder if she can help me with my asthma. Or I have difficulty grounding, or I experience low back pain or headaches. And so those questions are normal. And just like the conversation, Roy, that we just had, I'm going to empower the listeners to schedule a discovery call. The only way that you're gonna get your questions answered if we connect, and if you feel if it's a good match for you. Everything that I was just talking about, I truly believe. And so there is a discovery option on my website for those that are interested in finding out if the work that I do could serve them. Please take advantage of that discovery call. I do one-on-ones. I also do some group healings. And like, for example, on the third Tuesday of every month, I hold space for people to tap into their somatic intelligence. So they get to listen to their body in a way, in an expanded state, to get and to receive and to understand the messages that the body is trying to communicate to them. it's quite a fascinating process. And really my intention is to hold space for others, but I also wanted to create an affordable way for people to incorporate energy medicine into their toolbox. So those were two different ways, two different options. That again is in person and also remote. The far majority people connect in via the Zoom room. So those are some opportunities.
Excellent. Listen, thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. You might let people know where they can find you.
You can always find me on my website, which is www.drmarysanders.com.
Yeah, perfect. I'll make sure I'll put the link, the audio and video. And I know you've got like LinkedIn and different things, and I'll put them as well.
I
And
do.
your podcast, because people kind of follow the platform that they like, and I'll make sure I list them. But listen, I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The joy has been all mine. Thank you so much, Roy.
So that's all for the meditation podcast. Find all our episodes on meditation.Dr. Sure to give us a thumbs up, 5-star rate, and share with your friends, and comment on what we discussed. We'd love to read your comments. Until next week, take care.